Hi, this is Larry Call from Revenue Secrets. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited today to talk about something that many of us who own small businesses or are solopreneurs, self-employed face, but don't diagnose correctly. And we'll get into the details of that in a minute. But first, I'd like to introduce Rob Ristagno from Sterling Group, Sterling Woods Group, and give him an opportunity to talk about his experiences. First, you just want to introduce yourself a little bit. You know, what's your story? What are you working on now? And then we can get into the details around what you and I have been discussing.
Sounds good, Larry. And thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to see how this conversation unfolds.
Great.
So just quick background. I started my career doing the McKinsey consulting thing. Then I worked for 3 different private equity owned businesses, mainly in a business development, sales, marketing, product type role. But then I decided I wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to be my own boss and start my own company. And so for the last 5 years, I've been running Sterling Woods Group. And in short, we help middle market businesses take a look at their customer data and make sure that they're focused on their best customers, and all their sales and marketing resources are going after their absolute best customers, and nothing is being wasted chasing people that will either never convert, or they might convert, but then they'll be a pain in the neck to serve and you'll lose money on them.
So you said something interesting to set up where we're going. That was really specific. I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's called product market alignment, or at least the messaging version of it. Have you always been this sharp?
Not at all. It's 5 years in the making, and probably could be a little sharper, I guess. So I think I suffered from both problems that are easy to diagnose when someone else suffers from these problems, but when you're in it, you don't realize it yourself. I think I've suffered from both defining my market too finely and from defining my market too broadly. And neither of them work.
I think there's a tendency that people have who don't necessarily understand how segmentation, market focus works, to just pick an industry and just to say, you know, I'm the expert in this industry. I didn't quite hear that from you. What I heard was a capability analytics to inform decisions. And then I heard some specificity around benefits having to do with targeting the right market, getting those customers that you really want. Is that was that correct? Did I get that right? And if so, how'd you get there?
I think that you got it exactly right, Larry. How I got there. I think I started, as you alluded to, just focusing on an industry. So I focused on niche publishers. There's still a focus area for us, but when I started, we were only going to work with niche publishers, and we were going to help them make this transition from a very ad-supported business model to a more balanced, diversified business model, which includes subscriptions, memberships, events, other ways of making business, of making revenue. And we had a lot of initial pilot clients that had huge successes. You know, at first we kept the price really low just to get some case studies and some examples. And we found half dozen or so publishers that were working with us. They got great results. And I just remember I was so confident. It's like, look, we got this one company, we 10x their revenue in a year. So I was like, with that case study, I'm going to be minting money. So then now that I'm armed with case studies, I'm going to all these events, talking to niche publishers and then saying, look at all this data, look at all these results. And I still was having a really hard time developing business. And I couldn't quite figure out what the problem was at the time. And I do remember this one conference I went to, it was in Phoenix, and this client who we 10x their revenues co-presented with me. And he was very gracious and said this was all Sterling Woods, and call Rob, and in all the breakouts he was referring back to it. So it was as you know, the best free advertising you could possibly imagine. So like, we're going to be rolling in it next year. Here we go. And I think I got one $5,000 workshop gig out of it.
Unbelievable.
So at that point, I decided it was time to take a step back and figure out what's going on here. And that's where I realized I was too precise. I had too specific of a problem that I was solving. So a lot of publishers and niche media companies, they didn't really think that this was a problem for them. They didn't think that, first of all, they trusted someone from the outside to know what to do on their online world. The online world, we just redid our website. I heard that a lot. Or, hey, I can hire my college kid knows how to use WordPress. I'll just have them work on it.
Right.
And, oh, you have to migrate all my content or all my systems. I don't really want to deal with a migration. So there were these other pain points around the cost of doing business with us that we didn't fully appreciate. So I think in that case, we were very specific about our market, but we didn't have the right product. And so that's when we generalized into improving our product, which at that's the point we realized, hey, what we really did with these publishers, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about being a publisher and going from ad supported revenue to reader revenue or subscriptions, memberships. What we really did is we came in, we understood their audience, we understood their customer base using data, and then we came up with a new go-to-market plan for them. So that's when we said, hey, let's pivot. We're not just the guys who can come in and gals who can come in and transition you from an ad to a membership model. We can come into any business and look at your data about your customers and figure out how to improve your go-to-market model.
I'd like to introduce a tip here for the audience and then get your comment on it. And that is, if you figured out a sales and marketing approach and you're out in the market with it and it's not working, take a step back. And there's a series of causes that you have to diagnose for. Now, it could be product market alignment, but it could also be your story and series of stories you're telling. It could be your messaging. It could be the way that you're taking people through the journey to make a decision to work for you. Maybe it's you're asking for too much too quickly. Yeah, it certainly could be the way you're marketing it and you're in the wrong place, or the wrong time. So we're talking about this upfront sort of product market alignment part. So let's say I'm not getting the results that I want, but I am out there. So people are seeing me. What are the symptoms that would lead you to believe, because I'm sure you can spot this in other companies now pretty quickly, that is the problem, the product to market?
I think a real telltale sign is a lot of like, great, I get it, it sounds good. Right now, it's just not a priority for me. And I'll keep you in mind. And when it is a priority, then we'll give you a call. And you can do all you want with content marketing and thought leadership and try to find a way to stay in touch. But to me, I've learned that signals you haven't tapped into a massive head wound. You haven't found that real pain point or that real opportunity. So that means, I think, whenever I hear, oh, sounds good, I get it, I'll let you know when I have a need, I think that means we didn't do a great job at really understanding and empathizing with the prospect in terms of what is their real need. And are we clear that we understand that real need? And then, all right, it's obvious that this solution has solved that needs for other people like them.
In my own experience, I've diagnosed that as a sales skills problem. So I put the wrong solution in place and it doesn't work. Maybe you get a little bit further, but they still don't buy. So part of the issue I've seen with companies is an innovation where you're asking them to change too much for not enough potential benefit, or maybe there is enough potential benefit, but the pain of doing it on their side is greater than you realize. So how do you figure out what that sweet spot is then if you recognize the fact that you're out of alignment?
Yeah.
Hearing those.
By the way, what you just said, Larry, definitely resonates with me, because I do think that we're pushing people too far out of their comfort zone at the very beginning. You've been making all your money on advertising for the last 50 years, and now we want you to pivot.
Change everything.
Yeah.
Completely reinvent.
So it's too big. I think one thing to think about is how can you crawl, walk, run with your clients and prospective clients. So how can you think about, instead of quote unquote selling a digital transformation that you'll be completely different, but it will take a year or two to get all the way there. How can you think about, I guess, a quicker win, some way to work with them that's on that path, but it's digestible. Maybe it's closer to things that they're already doing today, just so they can start getting bought into your methodology or your product or your service, whatever it is. So, maybe with perfect hindsight, instead of promising we're going to totally convert all your ad revenue to membership revenue, what we could have said is, hey, we're going to crunch the data about your audience and your customers and figure out what is exactly the right business model. And we're going to start with a very simple thing. What the short-term goal is, just to get more people to sign up for your email newsletter. I'm just making this up. And it's, we're going to use it by mining your data and doing some research. And then that's going to be something that will fuel your existing business model, because the more names you have on your email list, the more you can sell advertising. And then maybe you get to second base and say, okay, look, we grew your list. Instead of selling those eyeballs to advertisers, why don't we sell them stuff? And then that's when you get into this, let's launch a membership product. That might've been a better 1-2 punch rather than promising the whole thing all at once.
I think the reason this often happens is that there's a huge difference in personality type and tolerance for change and risk among the founders of the companies selling to the buyers. So the buyers are very intolerant of the risk, unless you're in a specific niche where you've got some early adopter kind of pioneering oriented clients, which you can find, but it's usually not the bulk of the market. With a founder who's got the greatest idea in the world, and it is, but you're not going to change the world right away. And I worked for a company that had an incredible social data analytics platform, and they were trying to change how media is bought and sold in the United States. Well, go to a media buyer at one of these massive media companies and tell them to go to their boss and say, no, we don't need to use Nielsen data anymore. We don't need to do it that way. We're going to use all social data analytics from mining conversations on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. They're not going to change. So you've got to make it familiar to them. And that's what I hear you saying is you can transform, but don't let them necessarily think you're transforming. Give them something to buy that they can sell internally.
Right. And it makes sense. I think it's good overall too. I'm a much bigger fan of stringing together a lot of small successes with minimal risk rather than trying to swing for the fences, and it's either a home run or a strikeout. I'm a baseball fan. That's probably my second baseball analogy that I've used.
I wasn't counting yet. So if you get to this point now where you finally realize what was going on, you were out there, you're all excited about your new thing, and you're not getting the traction you want, even though you're getting the attention. You got your good pilot social proof and your case study. You recognize the transformation, you rebalance that product, you go after a new market. Well, then what happens? How did you get through that next phase?
Yeah, so I think the next phase was, we can serve any industry now. We can serve any company. We figured out this process and methodology.
Now you went from this to
exactly. So we had the opposite problem. So we said we can work with any company, big and small, any industry. We maybe had a few exceptions, like, oh, we don't really work with government, and we don't really work with companies that only have three. They only go to market through 3 wholesalers or something. But we really just. I remember actually our website said we work with B2B, B2C, and B2B2C companies, which is the entire universe. So it's definitely way too broad. And the problem there was very tough to figure out who to target. And that's where we had a few wins, because you're casting a wide net, and we were doing better because we kind of really understood the pain point and the solution and how to communicate it better. So we were doing much better from a close rate and from that standpoint. But it was very tough to target our business development efforts because we casted too wide of a net. And that kind of has its own set of problems.
So the easy way would be to narrow down industry, but still keep it bigger than where you were, or size of company. But what I'm hearing is you thought a little harder, and you recognized it was more of a use case or a business problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That is where you put your segmentation effort into.
Exactly. And we have company size, we play in the middle market, and there's some industries we have more experience with than others. So we're not just in one, but you're right. The real thing we did was we looked at those use cases, those personas, segments, use cases, whatever terminology you want to use. But we learned just, where these circles, what clients value the most, you enjoy working on them, you create value, and you can actually make a profit for yourself. And so in that intersection, we found three personas, three use cases. One we call the cliffhanger. So it's the CEO of a middle market business, probably private equity or family office owned, probably more like the private equity owned. And they've just veered off track from the investment thesis. So, private equity companies they want to buy, hold for 3 to 5 years, sell it for 20 to 30% IRR. And the CEO wakes up one day and realizes he or she's off track and is not going to hit their numbers. And in fact, I had one CEO who told me he can start hearing the private equity company banging on their tom-toms. They're going to come after him soon. So that's great because look, our data, we can quickly come in, and in a matter of 2 months, we can be in market with new ideas and get you right back on track. So you can save your job and look good and have a successful exit. Our second persona we call the Trailblazer. So this is probably a new VP of marketing or a chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer, maybe a new CEO who's been brought into a sleepy company and their job is to wake it up. So it's not a turnaround situation. It's probably family owned, or it's been privately held for a long time. It's okay. Maybe it's been flat or declining slightly, but someone's been brought on as a change agent to come in and really let's turbocharge this. So we have to help that person, A, quickly understand their market, and B, earn some quick wins so they establish credibility. Because I've been that person in a prior life, and everyone comes in and they doubt you and they think there's great, yeah, we'll see how long this guy lasts. And, you need some quick wins to establish credibility. And that's what we do for that persona.
What's interesting about what you said is you're giving people cues in our audience. So what I'd say to people, if you're looking at your business and people are finding you, they're seeing you, and you're not getting anywhere, take a look at your product market alignment and the way you're positioning the company. Second, as you just described right here, if you're looking at a challenge from a revenue standpoint and you're out there and you're working it hard, look very carefully at the persona, your ability to convey who your market is, your market audience. So if you're speaking in like list query terminology, we sell the CEO of this size company and they're like this, live here, and you're not there yet. So you were able to quickly articulate exactly who your customer is. So I would challenge anybody in the audience, if you can't do that immediately and tell a story around it that anyone can understand, there's where your problem is, or at least a problem that you got to solve for right away.
Right. Yeah. And I think we've had much better luck. Our third persona, by the way, just to round it out, is stuck at the chasm. Someone who hasn't completed the digital transformation, but they need to. But what we found is having these personas, it's much easier to get people to engage with you and of course to eventually retain you, rather even some of the other dimensions like industry or company size. You still might have that problem of sounds good, but we're not really ready for you right now. So that's why we love these psychographic personas that really tap into what's going on in the individual's head and what's going on in their company.
How did you develop that? Did you do that on your own with an executive team, or did you work with an outside company to figure that out?
Truth be told, this is what we do for our clients. And I woke up one morning and said, wait a minute, why haven't we done this on ourselves?
I've been through that too. I'm like, I didn't go through my own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So we did, it involved, we have the data of knowing which customers that we actually worked with. And then we went out and quote unquote, talked to 100 smart people to refine out our research to come up with those personas.
So when you say smart people, you're talking about querying your audience, speaking to them specifically, interviewing them, and.
Yeah, exactly. Going out, talking to current clients, previous clients, prospects you got close to, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Other industry experts, friends, influencers in the market. So I've mentioned a lot of our companies are private equity owned. So go actually talk to the private equity investors themselves. So just kind of 100 people that know what's going on and can give you different perspectives And that really helped us pinpoint these 3 personas and really sharpen our product market fit.
And I'll go for another tip for the audience here, which is don't do this inside your own head or in a room with a whiteboard. And it's actually easier than you think. What you can do is you can identify lists. So you can look at influencers, you can look at potential customers, you can look at past customers. Go out on LinkedIn, connect with them, and ask them. Ask them for their expertise. People love to tell you what their expertise is. You're going to get tons of meetings. Don't try to sell them anything. And they're going to be an audience in the future as potential customers, or at least some of them, anyways. But you're going to get what you need to know. So I think that's really good advice of get that data, get that information clear in your head. So what happens next? So now you're going in the right direction, in the right place. Then what's that next piece that you've got to put in place?
Next up for us is scale. So through getting this product market fit, we talked a lot about the business development benefits, but we also have delivery benefits. So we're no longer calling ourselves a consulting firm. We're now a data enabled services firm.
Yeah.
Because we've worked out process. We've actually built a little bit of software to automate some things on the back end. Every client every customer gets its own custom unique output. It's not a copy and paste template, lift and shift type of situation, but the process is repeatable. So that allows us to hire people and train them more quickly. And it allows me to work on the business instead of in the business as much. So yeah, without that, I don't think we'd be ready to scale. So a combination of having the right product market fit helps you know how to spend your sales marketing dollars, but it also helps you deliver to your customers better.
And what you're talking about is relevant to this audience, whether you're an individual or a small team and want to scale a company, or you really don't. You want to stay on your own. You just want a few more clients and more predictability in your pipeline. You still work through the same sorts of exercises. So let's, keeping this really focused, product market fit, understand when you're seeing any kind of a market barrier, to go back and take a look at that right away. When you do your segmentation, get creative and talk to a lot of people and figure out what they're thinking and what they need, and understand them well enough to tell that story to yourself first, really clearly, so you know your market, and then get it into some kind of an more automated, rigorous system before you start scaling that sales and marketing function. Otherwise, you're just throwing money down the drain, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good. Anything else, Rob? This is a great story, and you and I have been there and done that multiple times, and sometimes you're stumbling around in the dark for a while, but if you keep at it and talk to people, things tend to work out if you've got something good.
Yeah, no, it's been a really exciting journey, and every time you make a mistake, or as long as you remember to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, it's kind of fun, almost like, oh, that was totally wrong, but I learned from it, and now I'm going to go in this direction, and it works out, and you're like, oh, that's great, but then I made this other mistake, and you learn from that one, and I think it's something as an entrepreneur that's the most fun part. I mean, it can be discouraging, of course, when you make the mistake, but it is fun looking back at where were we 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and you do see there's a lot of progress that's been made.
This is a big part of why when I started Sales Sherpa, I focused on the revenue climber concept, creating the revenue climber club, as I feel like for myself, I was often in my own head trying to figure out these really complex issues on my own. And as there's a community around you, it's a lot easier to figure out some of these problems and at least even identify what's going on, because other people are going to see it, really quickly if you're in that sort of a community. So I think that's a really important part of this is a sort of a small company or a solo operator. You can get lost in your own excitement.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've been there many times where I'm like, this is it. I'm there. And nothing's happened yet, but I've already decided I'm going to get my beach house and I'm going to
start shopping.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, what happened? Why don't they understand what I figured out? All right, awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much, Rob, for your time. I hope this was helpful for people in the audience. It was definitely helpful for me. I think this is I really wanted to do this interview because I think this is one of the most uh, overlooked issues. When people have a sales problem, sometimes they'll go to branding, they'll go to messaging, they'll go to the salespeople. They go to lead generation, what they're doing on LinkedIn, their content marketing, and they forget all about what am I selling and who am I selling it to.
It sounds basic, but it's super powerful.
Yep. All right. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Larry. I had a great time.
Thanks for listening. If you're self-employed and tired of not having enough great clients, join our free Revenue Climber Club. Click salessherpa.co for details and to sign up for the community. Stop climbing alone and reach the summit together with us.